In May of 2015, cellist Jian Wang returned to Beijing, taking up the role as artist-in-residence of this year's NCPA May Festival, an annual program by the National Center for the Performing Arts that highlights chamber music. His mission started with a lecture where he shared some of his thoughts on understanding Romantic-era composers as well as memorable moments in his career. He also gave a few tips to music conservatory undergraduates and even demonstrated a bit of Bach. Our conversation started right there. Good to see you in Beijing.
Thank you.
Welcome to ICON.
Thank you very much.
Before the interview started, actually, just now I saw you having a kind of a lecture, public lecture.
Yeah, well, like talking to the audience, master class, and meet audience, have a talk about music.
Right.
It's very much part of the effort of the National Center for Performing Arts to reach out to average audience who do not necessarily come to concerts all the time.
That's right.
But you know, we would like to provide a platform where they can meet the performers and to get to know them a little bit, from a different angle than merely listening to them perform on stage.
How did it go?
Went very well, I think. They were laughing a little bit, so I hope they had a good time. It's a little bit difficult to really tell what they're looking for as the audience, but I think you start to get a feel of it as you go along. And you kind of talk about different things, and you can see how they're interested and if they're responding. So I think it was a good experience.
But this is not your first time to be performing, say, in Beijing in NCPA. So what is your impression in general of the audience here?
I can see the progression from the very beginning, because actually I gave a full recital here from the very first season. I was the first cellist to actually give a concert here in the opening season. 2007? I think it's 2008.
2008?
Yeah,
okay.
Well, I'm not sure about it. But anyway, obviously this is a first class and spectacular building. And the sheer size and the beauty of it, I think, is such an attraction to so many people. Even if they're not interested in music, they're interested. They come to see, which is wonderful. I think it's fantastic. I think music is part of our lives, and if a new hall can attract people's attention and make them feel good being here, that's really, really important. And I think the fact that it has been so successful. It just shows it was the right formula to build the most incredible and beautiful place where people want to spend time. And so they come, they listen to some great music, watch great opera, see some shows and ballet, so that this can become part of their lives. So it brings a richness of experience to people's lives here in Beijing. I think it's fantastic.
Jian Wang has offered a diverse program for his lengthy stay at May Festival. A Haydn concerto, a collaboration with his longtime friends, the Shanghai Quartet, and a night of piano trios by Brahms and Tchaikovsky. He teams up with German-South Korean violinist Clara Jumi Kang and South Korean pianist Sun Wook Kim, both in their 20s and much younger than Jian Wang. But this is by no means a strange situation for the cellist, who has been through all this before. NCPA says this trio represents the power of Asian musicians. So what is exactly the character that Asian musicians have if compared to Western musicians?
Today, you go to any great conservatories in this world.
They're Asian musicians.
They're Asian musicians. Half of them. And I dare to say that without Asian students, a lot of these conservatories will probably go down. That's how it is, because classical music has taken root in Asia, not only in China. Japan and Korea is even way ahead of China with the popularity and the amount of audience and love for classical music. There's no question that Asia is one of the most important market for classical music. Obviously, Asian culture is very much rooted in pursuit of excellence. Of course, we value a lot about high learning. We value knowledge. We're fascinated by art. But I would say that the success of Asian musicians today in the world market is simply there are more of us. There are more of us. Just more kids are studying music.
We have a larger pool here.
That's right, absolutely. Much bigger pool. Than
40 million in China solely.
That's right. It's a matter of time. It's a matter of time. In Korea, the amount of kids studying music is tremendous, and they're so good. They're all so good. So there's just simply more people studying music in Asia.
How does it feel to be working with some young musicians in their 20s now?
Yes, I think it's going to be quite strange because I've always been the youngest in any group. It's like started from 10 years ago. I started noticing, wait a second, I'm older than these people on stage. This is a very strange feeling actually because I started performing when I was 13. So I was always the youngest on stage, but that's changed unfortunately quite quickly recently. I guess
time passes, right?
Time passes very fast. Yes, indeed. I think for me it's going to be very interesting to work with younger musicians, but I think because I came from there, I was the younger partners of the group. I understand how they feel. In my life, I've been helped a lot by great musicians. I was able to start performing fairly young in the United States because of Isaac Stern. When I was 16, I went to Yale University, and then I went to Juilliard School. But very quickly, I started to play concerts already because of the mentorship and help I got from Isaac Stern. Our world, our music world, is very competitive. There's so many great musicians. It is very, very hard to get noticed, and it's very, very difficult to start a career. That's being very, very honest.
You were only 10 when he discovered you.
That's right. He came to China in 1979. He heard me play when I was 10 years old, and ever since he took an interest in me. So when I was 16, he was launching my career already. So I've been, tremendously lucky. And in the mid-90s, I met this great Portuguese pianist, Maria João Pires, and Augustin Dumay. They are 20 years older than I am, and they're very famous soloists in Europe. And they took me in. They formed a trio with me, and that's how I started playing concerts in Europe as well. So now I am 46.
You're doing the same?
Well, I don't know if I'm doing the same, but I very much would like to introduce some great young musicians to the Chinese audience.
What do you enjoy most in this, piano, cello, and violin trio formation?
I think when you play with somebody you like, it's like having a good conversation. Because when you talk to somebody, and if you're really saying something that's important to you, if you talk about what happened to you in life and that you're unhappy or you're sad or you're really looking forward to something, and if the other person doesn't really understand you at all, they just look at you whatever, so you lose interest very much. But if you talk to somebody who can relate to you, who's telling you their own stories, it's like going out with friends, have a beer together and talk about life. Playing chamber music is like that. If you have a good partner, you have good partners, it's a very rewarding experience.
And playing solo, how different is it compared to playing solo?
For solo is different because, as a soloist, I am the leading voice of a whole orchestra, basically. And that's about 80 people behind me. So that's very different. You have to be a leader when you play concertos. You have to be the person who leads, who guides, and to make things happen. And because the sheer size of the orchestra behind you, you have to be very, very powerful and insistent. It's a different kind of music making.
Jian Wang has performed the entire set of Bach's 6 suites for solo cello several times on stage. As a cellist that had been playing Bach throughout his life, the 6 suites have become a private kingdom for his state of mind. 2 years ago in Beijing, you had that tremendous, that huge presentation of Bach's cello suites.
Yes.
That was like quite a challenge for a celloist, right?
Yes, it is. It is, I think, one of the hardest repertoire for any cellist to perform on stage because it's very long, and you
Physically challenging.
Physically challenging, and you play alone. There's nobody helping you, and it's really hard to memorize. It's unlike the piano, they have many notes. If we have one note, and if we play one note wrong, everybody knows. So it's very, very dangerous and exposed. But it is the most rewarding piece for us to play because we're completely alone. We make the world around us. It's like you're creating the world with your own hands. It's fantastic. It's the greatest experience.
So how would you, describe Bach's music in the best way?
I think it is quite clear, even if you just listen to his music. Bach was a very pious man, very pious. He wrote his music for a higher authority, and he, as such an attempt, and he tried to, of course, to bring the best from his own heart to offer to who he was writing for. I am not religious. I'm not a Christian, but I can understand that. I can understand this effort. I can feel this piousness. So his music is very sincere and is very much trying to be good and very much hoping for the best. And his music is also really philosophical for me. You listen to some of the Bach cello suites. It is almost like a mathematical equations. Yes, it's incredible. I don't know how to explain it, but you're listening to this and sometimes you feel, I wonder if this is the building blocks of the universe. I wonder if this is how things are constructed in our world, the basic formulas. And it's incredible music. It was quite a challenge to play here in Beijing for the first time.
That was the first time?
First time, yes, and nobody has done that. Nobody had done that. Everybody was really worried how people react to this, yes. But I tell you, it was the most incredible experience in my life because the audience was so good. I mean, you could hear a pin drop. I was playing, I felt the world was frozen. It was like stopped, time stopped when I was playing. Everybody was listening like this. You could not hear a single noise. You could not even hear them breathing. They were holding their breath, listening. It was the most beautiful audience I ever had in my life. I was so touched by the audience because they were listening with such attention, as if they were praying with me. It's really fantastic.
So what is it like to be on that stage performing either in solo concerts or in a trio or with an orchestra, either playing Bach's or Brahms' works? What is it like to be on that stage? Do you picture your audience actually in your mind?
Somewhat, yes, somewhat. But it's a very different experience, you see. When you play a concerto, it's very much like talking to a big crowd and making a speech. And you tell them something. You say, this is what happened. But with Bach cello suites, when you play, you're not talking to anybody. You're thinking in your head. You're just sitting there. The things you're playing are the things you're thinking in your own head. It is so private, it is so quiet. It's like this. So the audience, they're looking at you, they're hearing this, they're going inside. You draw them inside. Because Bach's music is so intimate. It is very much, we play Bach for ourselves. It's like sometimes in the middle of the night you cannot sleep. You get up, you go to the living room, you turn on a small light, you take a cup of tea, you sit and you drink and you think about your life. You think about what's important to you. And you remember things. You remember your friends, you remember your parents, you remember people you love. That's what happens in Bach.
Which sounds very heavy though.
It is heavy, absolutely. It is heavy. That is why classical music is never going to be the most popular art form in the world, because it's heavy. But usually in life, these heavy stuff are the most important stuff in our lives. We just cannot deal with it all the time. Who wants to think about these things every day? It's too heavy. But these moments when we think about these things, when we think about what's really important to us, when we think about our deepest sadness, and when we think about the people we lost, that's the most important part of our lives.
But if it is about loneliness, if it is about sadness, yes, is it about the instrument itself, or is it about Bach's music?
That's a good question, yes. I think the cello inherently is a little bit more somber. I wouldn't say it's sad, but it's more somber. It is more, it's older, it's a deeper voice. It is not as flashy as the violin or as brilliant as the piano. I think the voice itself, it is more deep, definitely. But Bach's music is very, very deep, that's for sure.
So if you use the metaphor of colors to describe cello music, or say Bach's music, what would be that kind of color?
Well, of course, for me, every note has a color. Yeah, I forgot the word to say that. It's a very...
You do see colors in scores, yeah?
Every note has a color for me, absolutely. But if you ask me what is the basic color of the cello, I would say it's brown.
Not blue?
Not blue. The violin would be blue. And the piano would be silver.
Silver?
Yeah, it's very strange. But the cello, brown for me, is steady, it is humble, it's not very flashy, but it has substance.
It has its inner power in it.
Inner power in it, and thickness to it. Brown is for me. But we have different feelings for colors. But blue is, light and hopeful and shiny,
I thought blue is about somber.
Yes, for some people, blue is a color of sadness. For me, it's not. It's very interesting. I don't know why. I guess when I see blue, I feel happy because it means the air is clean.
Me too, though.
That's right, yes. When you see blue, it's wonderful. There's no cloud and it's not raining. So for me, it means happiness. But yes, you're right. Blues, in America they say blues, right? For a reason, it's a color of sadness.
So is it a kind of a coincidence that you find your inner peace in cello, in Bach's music, and your own personality?
I think we need to find our inner peace somewhere. Everybody needs to find their own inner peace somewhere. I don't care who it is, even the most shallow and uneducated or unfeeling persons, they will need that moment to be in touch with their inner feelings. And I think music is the best place for that. Because if you think about it, every time I play a piece, be it Bach or Dvorak or anything, I feel fantastic. You know why? Because I know this voice, this music, this sound was already in Bach's head. He heard the same music as I am hearing today. And he died how many hundreds of years ago already. And so when he composed this piece, he heard this music. That's his world. That's his soul. He felt this music. He heard this music. And I am hearing the same thing. So he lives on forever from this music. So for me, music is immortality. Because music carries the feelings and our memories of humanity. It goes on and on forever. Because every time we perform, we're recreating this emotional world, these feelings, these memories of all the people who had heard it before, who had felt touched by this music. So they live on from this music.
So it's like you're talking to the composers themselves. From hundreds of years ago.
No, I'm not talking to them. I am
repeating their journeys.
That's right. I am seeing the world and feeling this world through their ears, through their head. For me, that's immortality, because music is the only medium that is recreated every time and becomes alive. Every time we perform, it's alive again. Every time we perform, that part of Bach is alive again, because that's what he created. His sound comes back, and it's as if he never died, because the most precious part of his his music lives on. I think it's wonderful.
Do you still practice nowadays?
Yes, of course. Yes, yes. It's our curse as a instrumentalist. It's horrible. It's terrible. I mean, like, with so many art forms, you learn it, you've done it, you can. That's pretty much it, right? No, we have to perform every day. We're half artists and half athletes. We are like Olympic champions.
So both mentally and physically.
That's right.
It's very demanding.
Absolutely. Musically, we have to be very, very good, and physically, this has to move. I mean, it's not normal to move so fast.
Talking about that, I hear this story that some time ago you had one inspiration actually from watching a National Geographic documentary about gorillas. You had that epiphany. What was it about?
No. Yeah, right. It's true. It's true. I saw it on movie, and I went to the zoo to watch them in real life.
Gorillas playing cello?
No. Gorillas walking around.
Right. So what did you see?
What I saw is this absolute natural grace of movement, because they're not as conscious as us. For example, when we walk into a room, we're thinking, how do I look good? I have to look respectable, I have to look cool, I have to look handsome for the, so you're thinking where to put the arms, you're thinking where to put your foot. We think about it sometimes. But the gorillas, they don't care. If you look at their hands, it is absolutely graceful. It's fantastic. There's not an ounce of tightness to it. So they walk, they take one step, they lift their hands, and all the fingers are completely relaxed, like a ball. They go like this, then they put it down again, then they put tension on it, again they go like this. It's beautiful. And so I found if I play the cello the same way, that's the best way. Because sometimes when we play, we want to do so well, we are putting a lot of tension in our hands. So you limit yourself. But if you move like the gorillas do, you only put the pressure and tension in the last second when you need. And immediately you let it go again. So you're always naturally moving. And so you always relax. You only put the power when it's absolutely necessary. That's what I learned. And it's helped me ever since.
Sounds like it's what we see in Kung Fu novels, that all these masters, they don't really remember all the moves.
Absolutely. By the time you think about it, it's too late. When you perform on stage, your hands have to do almost everything. Your mind is all about music. And the notes, your fingers have to do it by yourself.
Now, your last album was in 2007.
Yeah. That's right, yeah.
So what took so long for you to prepare your next one?
I think it's because it's becoming increasingly difficult to make recordings.
In what way?
Because the recording industry has been hit by online downloading, and the recording companies are not making money anymore. They're shrinking their budget tremendously. And today, if you want to make a recording, quite often you have to look for sponsorship to find the money, and you have to hire the orchestra yourself, these things, then the recording company can release for you. Of course, I'll be happy to do that, and I can do that if I see the results. But the simple fact is, I think people are moving away from CD recordings to online. Like everybody watches things on YouTube these days. So I think the amount of effort you have to put into making a recording is not rewarding enough for the sacrifice you have to make. I mean, it's like the results you get from selling these CDs. It's not as great as if, for example, you play a live concert and somebody put on YouTube, and millions of people would watch that. As for recordings, how many can you sell? 10,000, 20,000? It's still a very, very small number.
All right, okay. I can't help noticing actually in your last album there was that memory. That's from Cats, from musical.
Right. That's right, yes.
How come?
I love it. It's because I love it. The first time I heard that song, I had a lot of goosebumps in my neck. I had chills all over my body because it's such a beautiful music. I loved it. I've always wanted to play that. For me, it's a masterpiece. I don't care who wrote it. I don't care if it's pop music or not. It's a masterpiece for me.
You're okay with pop music?
Yes. I don't differentiate between pop and classical. As long as it has meaning and feeling, for me, that's art.
here is this cliche question, I guess. You've reached, well, to many, in the eyes of so many people, you've got your fame, you got, your recognition from peers and from your music fans. What is the next goal you're trying to achieve then?
To be better. That's my only goal. My biggest pleasure is to, my biggest pain and pleasure comes from the same thing. That is to discover something wrong with my playing. I listen to my recording, I listen to my live recording, and I hear something I don't like. I always hear something I don't like. And it's so painful to me. It's like you feel horrible that you try so hard, yet it is not good. It is so awful, this feeling. But then you quiet down, you work, and you find a way to improve that situation. You try to find a way to make that part of it playing better. And when you find that way, you're the happiest man in this world. Because, my goodness, I could change this. I can make myself better, self-improving. And then I feel so happy I would spend a year and a half, 2 years, going through the whole repertoire to improve that aspect of my playing. So for me, I take a long time because I always find something wrong with my playing, and it will take me a few months to find a way to improve that. And it will take me 1 or 2 years to repair that problem, for the whole repertoire. I've been going through this process for at least 10 or 15 times already.
And never ends.
Unfortunately, never ends. Because as soon as I improve this part of my playing, I discover something else is wrong.
Because you're a perfectionist?
No, I'm not a perfectionist, but I guess I can't do what I really want to do. That's the problem. I don't think I'm a perfectionist. No, I can accept certain amount of imperfections, but I think it is true that my standard becomes higher and higher and higher and higher, because I can tell from other people's playing. Because when I was little, I would hear somebody's play. I say that's the best playing I ever heard. But today I listen to this and no, it's not good enough. So it means that yes, my standard has become higher and higher. Not only to myself, but to other people as well.
When you try to achieve that, do you intend to do it in a classical way, or do you sometimes also would try innovative new ways of doing classical music? Interesting.
Yes. Yes, sometimes we get inspirations from other performing arts, from jazz. And I remember listening to Ella Fitzgerald a lot in one period of my life, and I adore her. She's one of the greatest singers for me ever in history. And I listened to her saying, I just was so amazed that she was so free, but everything's in time. That's something classical we don't do. We don't keep time like this. For them, they keep on the beat all the time. Ella Fitzgerald, when she sings, you can beat it all the time. It's absolutely persistent, but you don't feel she's like boring and always like this. She's so free, she's moving all the time, yet it's absolutely in time. It's a genius. I mean, I don't know. So I try to study how she does it. It's so interesting.
So it could be inspired anywhere, anytime, from any genres.
Yes, because I think in the end we're looking for something that's existing in many other different art forms. Or you watch a movie, if you're touched, the same thing. Then being touched by music is the same thing. Or being inspired by a painting is the same thing as being inspired by music. We need inspiration. Art is the food for our soul. That's all I can say. We need to eat to keep our body alive, but we need art to keep our souls alive.
Once again, thank you very much for your time. Thank you for sharing your story.